Success on the first date is critical as it's a gatekeeper to the further dates. Therefore, a lot of folks, both men and women, experience anxiety, especially if they haven't gone onto too many first dates. So let's hear your experience. Now the question: what are some tips for such folks to feel more comfortable and show their authentic self on the first date?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend everyone acts and behaves like they actually feel. A lot of people have anxiety, so then they'll like I touched on a little bit. Some of those guys will try and conform to what a woman wants, and then they won't act the same way. That creates some expectations that can also create resentment. Um, but with the whole authentic self thing, I actually touched on this on a like my client call just now, where we talked about how you want to act authentically as the best version of yourself, because if you just act like yourself and you want to improve and whatnot, then a lot of the times you'll stay in the comfort zone with that rationalization of acting like your authentic self. Example I give is a lot of times, like when you're born, you're a baby and you're crying. Eventually, you learn how to talk. Your authentic self was a crying baby. Eventually, you became like a little older and you talk, you speak words. So act like your authentic best version of yourself. And just don't portray yourself in a way that you're not. Like, don't lie about who you are as a person and things that you do in your life. Like, I had one client who was he was afraid of he was very insecure about his job, and he started saying that it was something else, and he was lying about the kind of job he had. But I told him just to frame it in a different way. So like, if you're insecure about being a computer scientist, make a joke about it being like something like you're like a legal hacker or something, or you're preventing the hackers from like taking down America, something like that. Because he worked in NASA as a computer scientist.
Gotcha.
Um, so overall, the authentic word, I have an issue with it because a lot of people use it as a rationalization to stay in the comfort zone. But I also don't believe in lying straight up to people and portraying yourself as someone who you're not. So, I mean, the advice is just like, if you want to keep the person around, act like yourself, but don't like have social calibration and be socially intelligent. Don't just trauma dump on people on the first date. Take your time, feel the person's vibe out. You don't need to tell them everything about you. Figure out stuff about them as well, and then just with time, you can say more like deep things and stuff.
Yeah. So be yourself, but don't scare them away. Or try
Yeah,
not
there you go.
to.
It's
That's
a
me.
fine line because like some people, what's okay to one person may not be okay to someone else. Like the cultures come into play too, like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I think the question was more about how to overcome the anxiety. Like, hey, I'm going to
Oh,
say
okay.
something stupid. I'm going to like fail miserably, and I'm going to embarrass myself with my partner and whatnot.
Is it coming from a man or a woman?
A girl, but I promised it to be anonymous, so I'm trying to not
Okay.
share as much.
It's a little different because of like the dynamics in society and stuff. But with guys, you gotta get used to rejection. It's part of life. You're not going to be very successful if you don't deal with rejection well, because you're a lot of the time as a man, the one who has to take the initiative. You have to take the action. As a woman, like if you have anxiety, it's not as bad because you can kind of just, especially if you want a traditional relationship, because you can just sit back and let the guy do the work at the beginning. It's kind of the onus is kind of on him. But as far as anxiety in general, I would just recommend exposure therapy. Put yourself in as many situations as possible that make you anxious. If you're anxious in social situations, talk to more people, go out of your way to put yourself out of your comfort zone. And then when you're used to being out of your comfort zone in social situations, that you'll notice the anxiety goes away. But it is very similar to the gym, where if you are anxious and you are not good at socializing, then you need to work on that it's like a muscle and build upon that. And then eventually you get to a point where you're good enough at what you do, so you can just maintain. You don't have to try really hard. But also it is very similar to the gym too, where if you stop going to the gym, you're going to lose your muscles and you're going to have to start lifting lower weights if you get back into it. So just like that with social skills, you need to go out there, take action, and then continue taking action, but it doesn't need to be as intense as the beginning.
I love it.
Erin's answer. The most important thing is to have zero expectations. I think about this in my book, Getting Cozy in Public. The first chapter tells the story of the first date I had, my now husband of 13 years. My mindset was to have fun and meet someone new, not to meet my future spouse. I also recommend a short coffee date over a long dinner date in the beginning. You just want to meet briefly and decide if this is someone you'd like to see again. Keep it casual. Okay. No, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to justify a bit more on that topic. So first one is she means do not expect anything from the date itself. Like know what you want, but don't expect that, hey, something gonna happen after this date. There will be second date or there will be no second date. She just basically go there with open mind.
Okay.
This is what she means by this. And second one is keeping the date casual. That's kind of, it goes against our earlier conversation, but keeping the date casual helps you to not have much of a kind of performance anxiety. I don't have to like overdress. I don't have to like be perfect because we are just having like coffee or we're just having like quick lunch or whatever. It kind of gives you, again, it helps you to cope with anxiety.